Good morning, and welcome to the very first episode of Red Coffee. Today, I want to talk about a little bit what this channel is, and I want to explain why I decided to start it. So, I am a Marxist-Leninist. I have been getting a lot into watching more political YouTube videos lately, and I wanted to see more of a Marxist-Leninist perspective on this whole left tube scene that is growing quite fast, and it's becoming more and more popular. I was searching for a while, and I tried to find I found some good channels. You can find them in my subscriptions. Other than that, I just wanted to do my own take on this format and be able to express my thoughts about the current political state and current news. So the format that I'm gonna start trying to upload at least 2-3 times a week is gonna be a little, let's just call it your morning news with a little bit of a Marxist perspective, and also I'm going to try to find things that other leftists might find interesting. And yeah, that's basically it. Other than that, I will try to do some interviews with comrades from around the world that I've met over the years on the internet. And I will also maybe be trying to analyze some things that I find interesting using the very wildly popular now format of a video essay. Right now, I will not put a lot of editing into these videos because I just want to start and see where this takes us and get going with all of that. So let's get right into it. Let's see what's going on in the world today. So the first headline that I wanted to talk about is about the Greek elections. So as maybe some of you might know, New Democracy, which is a conservative, right, neoliberal kind of party, has won the elections in Greece. This comes after the brutal attacks by the European Union towards the Greek government, forcing the Social Democrats. I'm gonna call them Social Democrats because a lot of people call Syriza. They call them like left populist or new left or that kind of stuff. And honestly, the scene in Europe, it's kind of interesting to see how around the world these new parties, these left of the traditional social democratic parties, are labeled as left populist or something like that. They're politically they're just the traditional social democracy, you know. The guy who's going to be more likely to become the new president of Greece, which is after the election results, is oh God, I'm going to mispronounce this, Mitsotakis. And he, there's nothing really special about him other than, you know, I think his dad was a prime minister, and his sister is the mayor of Athens, if I'm correct. So, you know, a fresh new start for Greek politics in that sense. Definitely not back to the old aristocracy ruling that country. So one thing that's interesting about the Greek election and that I wanted to talk about is two things. So the results, of course, have given the victory to New Democracy. Syriza has gone down quite a bit from the last electoral process. But there are two other parties that I want to talk about. So there's the MERA 25, which is Yanis Varoufakis' party. And well, I don't know if you guys have been following Yanis Varoufakis' latest political journeys, but after leaving Syriza, he wanted to start this pro-European, like social democrat, like reformist kind of party, all over Europe, and it's really the results speak kind of for themselves. So like they got 9 seats out of 300. It's really not a great result, considering that Greece is his home country. Other than that, I do want to talk about the Communist Party of Greece, the KKE. So the Communist Party of Greece has had, I would say, kind of like a slow growth since the crash, since the 2008 crash. And they got 15 seats, which is really not that bad for a communist party in Europe, especially when you consider that they consider themselves Leninists, and they openly defend the dictatorship of the proletariat. What's interesting about them, if you don't know much about them, is that they have quite a bit. They have a lot of influence on one of the biggest unions in the country, and it is said that there's no official data on this, but it is said that they have about 100,000 members, which for a country the size of Greece is pretty big. What's the problem with the KKE? So the KKE has had the line of building up strength for many years now. And when you are talking about a country like Greece, which is not very big, I think it's maybe around 15 million people. I'm talking out of my ass right now. But when you talk about a country of that size and 100,000 active militants, you're doing something wrong if you're trying to be a vanguard party and you don't have enough strength to launch a revolution at that point, because 100,000 people is a lot of people. If they were all prepared, all like really well prepared vanguard cadre people, that's a really hard word for me. You have enough strength. You have about 800,000 people on the union that they are very influential in, workers that can basically stop the country at any point. And so it's a good result, but I think their line on that is wrong. I think they should try to work more on preparing themselves for the revolution than spending more time trying to appease the liberals, and by taking this kind of slow approach to building the vanguard party. So now let's move to the next piece of news that I wanted to talk about. So Iranian boats try to intercept British tanker is the headline on BBC News. There has been a few of these lately. I don't know if you guys have been hearing about it, but so what this article basically says is that especially the headline, it's like Iranian boats try to intercept British tanker. It seems like it's an aggression on the part of Iran, but as we know, there's always a little bit more to these kinds of stories, and I want to get into that. So basically, the only reason that these boats got close to a British tanker is basically because the British have an Iranian oil tanker basically kidnapped in Gibraltar because it was trying to reach Syria. So, as we can see, this is not really an act of aggression. This is more of a self-defense kind of situation. And especially what's interesting about this story is that the British tanker was accompanied by some British warboats, and basically those were there because of the things that the U.S. Propaganda machine has been putting out there about how some of their ships have been attacked, or there's been missiles fired and drones dropped and all that stuff. So, interestingly enough, the drone that was dropped, if I remember correctly, the reason for that was because it was in Iranian airspace, and they have all the right to do that. And the attacks on 2 other oil tankers that the U.S. Reported, basically, there's no evidence of that. So the U.S. military, and specifically, I think it's one high-ranking officer, is the only source of that information. And we know what the policy right now is towards any country that doesn't bow to the United States, and which is actually a really good segue to our next story. Maybe I'll do a little bit more of an in-depth analysis of what is going on with Iran, why are the Iran-U.S. relations so broken, and why is Iran the way it is today? Because I recently read some very interesting things about that, and maybe I'll do a short video on that eventually. Next up, U.S. launches inquiry into French plan to tax tech giants. So, I don't know if people know this, but in the European Union, and everyone knows that tech giants don't pay basically any taxes in the U.S., but in the European Union, they don't as well. So basically what they do is they use countries that have very favorable tax breaks for them, like Ireland, and they just say that all of their revenue comes from their activities, which are based there. But if you live in Europe, if you've ever been to Europe, you know that that's not true, because everyone's using Google or Apple products everywhere you go. And we don't have to go to Ireland to use them. Also, the profits of, for example, Netflix in Europe, the payments that come from users of the video platform, they are their payments. They are like their own, like, French money that goes into paying for Netflix France accounts. And also, if you don't know, Netflix, in each country it has different shows on it, so which means their activity is actually localized. What's interesting about this story is that the EU, always the brave supporter of democracy and progressiveness, had actually voted against doing an EU-wide tax on big tech corporations. So France has taken the lead on this new tax, and there's some other countries which are maybe gonna follow on their steps. So apparently the U.S. government has already threatened to put up some tariffs against French goods being imported to the U.S. It's very telling about how today the United States is the empire, is the number one economic power capitalism, and how imperialism can touch even like countries that are really close in terms of the imperial level, the imperial chain to the United States, because France is not some country that the United States just tells them, okay, like this is what you're going to do economically. But as you know, nobody is really free from the tentacles of imperialism. All right, let's go to some good news. So, there's been an ongoing strike in Chile for the last few weeks, if I'm not incorrect. And yesterday, people voted. The teachers in the union voted in favor of continuing the strike. As you may know, Chile is the poster boy for American imperialism and capitalism in South America, because they followed in the neoliberal path, and people say that the country is one of the best ones to live in South America, but there is clearly some problems with that system, especially with healthcare and other things. And so apparently, these teachers are continuing the strike. I read somewhere that some other workers have also been supporting the strike, and all the more power to them. So I would like to know more about this strike, and I'm sure all leftists around the world tuning in would love to hear more about it as well. So if you know more about it, if you're Chilean, if you're a teacher, or anything like that, go ahead and contact this channel. So let's go on now to Colombia. Carlos Lozada, which is one of the ex-combatants of FARC, the FARC, has come on to the news and denounced that 140 ex-combatants have been murdered since their disarmament. Apparently, also not only FARC people have been murdered, but also about 600 people have been murdered for being politically left since the disarmament and since the peace treaty that was signed with FARC. Clearly, this is not just the Colombian government being reactionary, which it is, but it is also a strategic thing to kill all these leftists on the part of global capitalism. Let's remember that Colombia is really close. It's the neighboring country to Venezuela, and we know how global capital feels about Venezuela. Ergo, the killing of leftist militants in Colombia, it is not just a national issue of Colombia. It is an international effort to stop the left worldwide. So that's really all I have to say about that. It's an interesting thing to look at and to see how in a country which is another poster boy for capitalism in the global south, there are political murders on the daily, basically, and nobody is talking really about it except for people who really search for these news, as I do. Well, thank you very much for listening today. I will be back probably in a couple of days. I want to see how this episode goes. And I will hopefully have more content other than these little morning news things. And hopefully we will continue to talk about these issues and continue to learn about them, as well as hopefully there will be some other content very soon. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this cup of red coffee. Hopefully I will get better at making it. See you in a few days. Thank you so much for listening, and subscribe, hit the like button, and most importantly, have a great day.